The anomaly had no name in any human language. Not yet. It existed for 11 seconds, a tear in the fabric of dimensional space approximately 4 kilometers wide, burning with the cold blue light of Forerunner mathematics. And then it collapsed inward like a dying star swallowing its own light. What it left behind was wreckage, silence, and one man falling through the atmosphere of a world he had never seen. Master Chief hit the cloud layer at terminal velocity and didn't scream. Well, he'd fallen from orbit before. The math was familiar: angle of entry, atmospheric density, heat dispersion across the Mjolnir's ablative plating. Cortana would normally be feeding him precise landing coordinates, wind shear calculations, optimal body positioning for impact survival. Instead, her voice came in fragments, stuttering through the helmet's internal speakers like a transmission bouncing off too many dead satellites. John, interference. I can't. The dimensional. Something is wrong with this place's. Cortana. His voice was calm. It was always calm. Status: shields at 83%. Armor intact. But John, there's something in the electromagnetic background of this system. Something I've never... It's not interference exactly. It's more like... She went quiet. Not offline. Just quiet. The difference mattered. He oriented himself by instinct, spreading his arms to control the descent, reading the terrain below with eyes trained across 30 years of war. What he saw was a city dying. It was enormous. The kind of city that shouldn't exist, that defied the engineering logic of any civilization Chief had encountered. Towers of black granite and corroded iron stretched kilometers into the smog-choked sky, festooned with symbols he didn't recognize. Eagles, skulls, chains, all rendered in a scale that suggested not civic pride, but religious terror. The outer districts were burning. Not the clean, strategic burn of orbital bombardment, but the hungry, spreading fire of a city being consumed from within. Columns of black smoke rose in a dozen places simultaneously, and even from this altitude, Chief could hear the sound of it. Not explosions, but something almost vocal. A roar that wasn't mechanical. He came down hard in a manufacturum district, 3 kilometers from the nearest visible fire line. The impact cratered the ferrocrete, Mjolnir's hydraulic joints absorbing forces that would have liquefied an unaugmented human skeleton. He was on his feet in under 2 seconds, MA-40 assault rifle sweeping a 180-degree arc before the dust settled. The manufactorum was abandoned. Machines the size of Pelican dropships sat cold and silent, their purposes alien to him. Not technologically inferior, just different, built according to a philosophy that treated complexity as sacred and efficiency as secondary. Everything was over-engineered, over-decorated, over-blessed with carved scripture he couldn't read. The air tasted of promethium fumes, ozone, and something else, something organic and wrong underneath the industry. John, Cortana's voice returned, stronger for a moment. I've been trying to access local communications networks. What I'm finding, I need more time to process it, but I can tell you this. We are not in the Milky Way, not our Milky Way. The stellar cartography is... The stars are right, but the history isn't. John, something happened to humanity here. What kind of something? The bad kind. He filed that. processed it the way he processed all information that couldn't be acted on immediately. Stored, waited, set aside until relevant. Right now, relevant meant the firefight he could hear 3 blocks east. The distinctive crack snap of small arms fire. And the screaming that had just stopped being individual voices and become a single, sustained note of human terror. He moved. The streets were a cartographer's nightmare. Narrow, winding, stacked on top of older streets like geological strata, pipes and cables strung between buildings like industrial cobwebs. He navigated by sound, cutting through an alley that reeked of waste and something sweetly rotten, vaulting a barricade of overturned vehicles without breaking stride. The Mjolnir's motion tracker painted contacts ahead, multiple hostiles, multiple friendlies in full retreat, the geometry of a defensive line collapsing in real time. He came around a corner and stopped for exactly half a second. The soldiers ahead of him were human, recognizably, definitively human, in olive green flak armor that wouldn't have stopped a BR round, carrying rifles that fired visible red beams of laser light. He organized in the kind of desperate shoulder-to-shoulder formation that spoke of doctrine built on weight of bodies rather than weight of firepower. They were holding a rubble barricade against what was advancing on them from the far end of the boulevard. What was advancing was harder to categorize. They wore power armor, crude, brutal, decorated with viscera and welded trophies that Chief's threat assessment refused to classify as standard military hardware. Their faces, where visible, were wrong, not wounded wrong, changed wrong. And they moved with the particular confidence of soldiers who had already decided the battle was over. Chief raised his MA-40, calculated angles, and opened fire. The first 3 shots were diagnostic, testing ballistic resistance, reaction time, movement patterns. The results were informative. The 4th shot punched through an exposed joint in the lead warrior's neck, and the warrior went down. The human soldiers at the barricade turned, weapons swinging toward the new contact. Chief was already moving forward, angling to their flank, keeping rate of fire steady and deliberate. 2 more hostiles down. The advancing force slowed, not from fear, he assessed, but from genuine confusion. They hadn't expected a threat vector from behind their own front. "I'm not your enemy," Chief said, reaching the barricade in 4 strides and dropping behind it beside a soldier whose face was white with shock beneath a dented metal helmet. "Talk to me. What are we dealing with and how many?" The soldier stared at him, at the Mjolnir, at the visor, at 7 feet of armored human being who had just appeared from nowhere and started killing things that had been killing them. He found his voice somewhere under the terror. "Emperor's mercy, what are you?" Chief didn't answer that. He was already counting enemy contacts. If you crave stories of cosmic collisions and impossible soldiers dropped into impossible wars, I'd smash that subscribe button. The Emperor protects those who bear witness to the dark millennium. The soldier's name was Sergeant Aldrich Voss, and he had been fighting for 19 consecutive days. Chief learned this in the 90 seconds between repelling the first probe and the second assault, crouched behind the Ferrocrete barricade, while Voss gave him the condensed, profanity-laden version of a situation that was considerably worse than it had initially appeared. The hive world was called Varanthos Prime. 3 weeks ago, a cult had detonated something in the underhive. Voss called it a warp breach, a term that meant nothing to Chief yet, but carried the weight of something catastrophic in the sergeant's voice. What came through the breach had been spreading upward through the hive's levels ever since, corrupting infrastructure, corrupting citizens, corrupting soldiers. The regiment, the 114th Varanthos Rifles, had started the campaign at 12,000 strong. Voss commanded what remained of the 4th Company, 61 soldiers. He said it the way men say numbers they've stopped believing. "And those things we just pushed back?" Chief asked. "Chaos Space Marines." Voss said it like a prayer against something. "Word-bearers warband. They came through the breach 3 days ago. Before that, it was just cultists and things, easier things." He paused. Not easy. Easier." Chief processed the term Chaos Space Marines against what he'd observed. Power armor, enhanced physiology, organized tactical doctrine underneath the chaos of their advance. They were, in the most functional sense, super soldiers, not unlike him, though built according to entirely different specifications and apparently modified in ways that went beyond engineering into something he didn't have a framework for yet. "John," Cortana murmured through the helmet speakers, in low enough that only he could hear. "I've accessed fragments of their Vox network. That's their communication system. The word-bearers aren't here just to destroy this hive. They're trying to complete something the cult started, some kind of ritual. I don't have enough data yet, but the time pressure is real." He acknowledged with a micro nod she would recognize. Then he turned to assess his new allies. The 61 soldiers of 4th Company were arranged across 3 interlocking barricade positions spanning the boulevard and 2 adjacent alleyways. Reasonable tactical instinct, though the fields of fire overlapped inefficiently, and the leftmost position had a blind spot large enough to drive a vehicle through. Their weapons were laser rifles. Laser guns, Voss called them, which Chief had now field-tested against the enemy and graded as adequate against unarmored targets and largely insufficient against Chaos Marine plate without sustained concentrated fire. Their morale was the most important variable. It was not good, but it had not broken. The difference between those 2 states was Voss himself, Chief assessed. A compact, gray-stubbled man in his 50s who had the particular quality of certain NCOs Chief had known, and the ones who kept units functional through the pure gravitational force of their refusal to accept collapse. "Your perimeter has a problem," Chief said, and pointed out the blind spot. Voss looked back at Chief. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite trust, but the precursor to it. The professional recognition of someone who sees the same things you see. "We didn't have the bodies to cover it. You do now. Put 4 soldiers there, staggered, alternating fire lanes, and pull your 3rd position back 8 meters. You're too exposed to fire from the upper windows of that structure." Chief indicated the manufactorum tower looming over the right flank. "If they put sniper up there, you lose that entire position in under a minute." Voss was already gesturing to his squad leaders before Chief finished speaking. The second assault came 20 minutes later, larger than the first. Chief counted 9 Chaos Marines, supported by what Voss identified as cultists, closed. It was tactically competent in a brutal, resource-wasteful way. Chief had seen similar approaches from Covenant commanders who valued shock over efficiency. He'd learned how to beat it then. The principle translated. "Don't engage the cultists at range," he told Voss, moving to the repositioned third position. "Conserve your last fire. Let them close to 30 meters, concentrated volley, then redirect everything to the armored contacts before they can use the cultist screen for cover. Can your soldiers hold fire until 30 meters?" Voss's expression suggested this was asking a great deal of human nervous systems. "They'll hold." They held. The volley that met the cultist wave at 30 meters was ragged but sufficient. Enough bodies dropping fast enough to create a moment of hesitation in the survivors. Chief was already moving by then, breaking from the barricade at a sprint that drew immediate weapons fire from 2 Chaos Marines, the round striking his shields in flares of depleting energy. 81%, 77. He closed the distance before they could adjust. The Mjolnir's speed was something they hadn't calculated for. And the combat that followed was short and geometrically precise. Joint locks, weapon redirection, the MA-40 at contact range against exposed hydraulic systems in the knee joints of powered armor. It wasn't elegant. It was engineering applied to violence, the way Chief had always understood combat best. 2 Chaos Marines down in 11 seconds. The remaining 7 broke contact. Not retreating, he noted, but withdrawing deliberately, maintaining formation. Professionals, even corrupted ones. When he walked back to the barricade, the 61 soldiers of 4th Company were staring at him with expressions that occupied the uncertain territory between reverence and fear. Voss broke the silence. "Who in the Emperor's name sent you?" Chief considered the question seriously. Cortana's earlier words echoed. Something happened to humanity here. And he looked at these exhausted, outgunned, unbreakable soldiers and thought about how to answer honestly without destroying whatever fragile thing was holding them together. "Nobody sent me," he said. "I'm just a soldier." Voss studied him for a long moment. Then he laughed, a short, disbelieving sound with no humor in it, the kind of laugh that men emit when reality has outpaced their capacity for surprise. "Just a soldier," he repeated. "Right." Above them, somewhere in the smoke-choked upper spires of Varanthos Prime, a Vox signal was already moving. Someone with considerably more authority than Sergeant Voss had been monitoring the boulevard engagement through a salvaged Pict recorder, and they had questions, very pointed questions, asked in the particular tone of a man who carried an inquisitorial rosette and had never once in his career accepted the answer, "I don't know." Inquisitor Valdris Thane had survived 37 years of active service by treating coincidence as enemy action. He reviewed the Pict feed 3 times in the back of his Chimera command vehicle, each viewing stripping away another layer of charitable interpretation. An unknown figure in powered armor. Not Astartes armor, The proportions were wrong. The design language entirely alien to any STC variant in Imperial records, appearing without warp signature, without ship, without any detectable means of transit, during an active chaos incursion on a hive world of moderate strategic value, fighting effectively, fighting intelligently, demonstrating tactical awareness that suggested not just combat training, but genuine strategic understanding. Thane was a lean man, gray at the temples, with the careful eyes of someone who had learned to read rooms the way other men read books. He wore his inquisitorial rosette on the inside of his coat, not the outside. Men who displayed their authority prominently, he had found, were men who needed it as a crutch. He had not needed a crutch in 20 years. "Enhance the armor detail," he said to his servo-skull operator. The image sharpened. The armor was green, a particular shade that carried no Imperial heraldic meaning he recognized. The helmet was smooth, almost featureless, dominated by a single curved visor that reflected light without revealing anything behind it. No chapter iconography, no regimental markings, no prayers etched into the plating, no purity seals, no devotional scripture of any kind. That last detail bothered him most. Every Imperial warrior marked their war gear with faith. It was not regulation, it was instinct, the accumulated habit of a civilization that had learned, across 10,000 years of horror, that faith was as much armor as ceramite. The absence of it meant one of three things: Xenos origin, chaos affiliation, or something outside his existing categorical framework. Thane did not enjoy things outside his categorical framework. "Get me Voss," he said. The Vox connection was poor. Varanthos Prime's communications infrastructure had been degrading for days. Chaos corruption eating through the signal relays like acid. But Voss's voice came through clearly enough. The sergeant was not a man who mumbled. "Inquisitor. The figure on the boulevard, where is it now?" A pause. "He's here with us, sir, helping shore up the third position. He's..." Another pause, the kind that contains a great deal of compressed information. "He's quite effective, sir. I have no doubt. Bring him to me, peacefully if possible. And if he doesn't want to come peacefully..." Thane looked again at the pict feed. At the 11 seconds of footage showing one figure dismantling two Chaos Marines with the methodical efficiency of a man solving an equation. "Then bring him to me carefully," he said. A chief knew he was being led somewhere when Voss stopped making eye contact. It wasn't accusatory. The sergeant was clearly uncomfortable with whatever he'd been instructed to do, and that discomfort manifested as the particular rigidity of a man following orders he hasn't fully made peace with. Chief had seen it before. He'd worn it before. He walked with the four-soldier escort without comment, reading the route, cataloging exits, assessing threat levels with the automatic, an unceasing attention that 3 decades of war had made indistinguishable from breathing. "John, I've been running analysis on everything I can access," Cortana said, her signal clearer now. The warp interference seemed to fluctuate rather than maintain constant pressure, which was information worth having. Their history. I'll tell you the full picture when we have time, but the summary is, this is humanity, approximately 20,000 years from where we started, and it has not gone well. They're governed by a theocratic military empire called the Imperium of Man. The figure they're taking you to has significant authority. The word their Vox communications keep using translates loosely as Inquisitor. Meaning he investigates threats to the Imperium and has more or less unlimited authority to act on his findings, including lethal authority. Chief considered this. Threat assessment? Unknown, but John, be careful with what you tell him. I don't think honesty is automatically the right play here. That was Cortana at her most useful. Not just tactical calculation, but social intelligence. The understanding that not every conflict was resolved with a rifle. He filed the advice as they were led into what had once been a manufacturum supervisor's office, now converted into a field command post with the particular organized chaos of a military mind making do with available resources. Maps covered every surface. Vox equipment hummed in the corner, and behind the central table, studying him with eyes that had clearly been studying people for a very long time, stood a gray-templed man in a dark coat. They regarded each other for a moment. "Sit down," Thane said. "I'll stand." Not aggressive, just honest. Chief didn't sit in rooms he hadn't cleared. Something in Thane's expression acknowledged the point. "You speak Gothic. Is that what this language is called? You speak it without accent, you without hesitation." Thane's tone was academic, precise. That's not possible for someone unfamiliar with the Imperium, which means either you're lying about being unfamiliar or something translated it for you. His eyes moved to the helmet. "Something in there, perhaps." Chief said nothing. Cortana said, very quietly, "He's good." "I'll tell you what I know," Thane continued, moving around the table with the unhurried confidence of a man who'd conducted this particular kind of conversation, the kind where the power dynamics were politely unspoken but absolutely present. Many times before, you appeared without ship or warp transit. Your armor matches no STC variant in Imperial records. You fought word-bearers with effectiveness that suggests either Astartes level enhancement or something equivalent. You carry weapons I don't recognize. And you've demonstrated tactical intelligence that implies formal military training of a sophisticated order. He stopped 3 meters away. What you are is my question. Who you serve is my concern. Chief took 4 seconds, long enough to be considered, short enough not to seem evasive. "My name is John. I'm a soldier. I came from somewhere else. Not your Imperium, not your chaos. Somewhere else entirely. I'm trying to understand where I am and how to get back. Until then, I'll help where I can." Thane was quiet for a long moment. "That," he said finally, "is either the truth, a very sophisticated lie, or the open imposition of a negotiation." He tilted his head slightly. "Which is it?" Chief looked at him through the visor. "All 3. For the first time, something that might have been respect crossed Thane's expression. It didn't make him any less dangerous. If anything, the reverse. Cortana came back strong at 0300 Hive local time, when the warp interference dipped to its lowest ebb and her signal burned through the electromagnetic murk like a searchlight through fog. Chief was alone in the small antechamber Thane had assigned him. not a cell, technically, though the two armed soldiers outside the door represented a distinction without much practical difference. He'd use the quiet hours to field strip and inspect his weapons, run a full diagnostic on the Mjolnir systems, and catalog everything he'd observed since landing. Old habits, the kind that kept you alive across campaigns that should have killed you several times over. When Cortana's voice returned at full clarity, it carried something he recognized immediately. Not fear. She didn't experience fear in any way he could cleanly define, but the particular quality of someone who has processed information they wish they hadn't. "John, I need to tell you about this place." "Go ahead." The Imperium of Man spans roughly 1,000,000 inhabited worlds. It has existed, in its current form, for 10,000 years. Before that, there was something called the Age of Strife. Humanity fragmented, isolated, nearly destroyed by psychic catastrophe and alien predation. A single individual reconquered and reunified humanity across centuries. They call him the Emperor. She paused. Cortana did not pause for dramatic effect. She paused when processing collided with uncertainty. "He's been dying for 10,000 years, John. He was mortally wounded in a battle against his own son. It's complicated. And he's been kept alive on a machine called the Golden Throne ever since. He can't speak, can't move. He might be conscious. They're not sure. And 10,000 years of institutional momentum has built an entire civilization on the premise that he is a living God who guides and protects humanity." Chief stared at the wall for a moment. "Is he?" "I don't know. The warp, their term for a parallel dimension of psychic energy that permeates this universe, appears to be genuinely responsive to belief and emotion. Faith here isn't metaphorical. It has measurable physical effects. So, whether he's a god depends on your definitions, and I'm not sure our definitions apply." He processed this, set it beside everything else. The chaos forces, the word bearers, servants of entities called chaos gods, beings of immense psychic power that exist within the warp and feed on human emotion. Fear, rage, excess, manipulation. Each corresponds to a different entity. The word bearers specifically worship a chaos god called Lorgar. Actually, they worship chaos itself, all four gods simultaneously. Think of them as the ideological extreme of what happens when you build a civilization on faith, and that faith gets redirected. Corrupted true believers. Exactly. John, there's something else. Something in the underhive of Varanthos Prime that the Inquisitor's records don't fully account for. The cult that started this, the breach they opened, it wasn't just to let the word bearers through. There's a secondary signal in the deep hive. Something biological. Something... She stopped. The interference surged back suddenly, a wave of psychic static that Chief felt as a pressure behind his eyes, even through the helmet's insulation. Cortana's signal fragmented into white noise. Then, in the space her voice had occupied, something else spoke. It wasn't audio. It was the suggestion of audio. The way a sound exists in the moment before you're certain you heard it. It came from no direction and every direction simultaneously. And it said, in a voice like pages tearing, "Spartan, we know what you are. We knew you were coming before you arrived. The breach was not an accident. Chief was on his feet with the MA-40 raised before the sensation fully resolved. Nothing in the room. Motion tracker clear. But the temperature had dropped 4 degrees. The Mjolnir's environmental sensors were precise about that. And the shadows in the corners of the antechamber seemed to occupy slightly more space than geometry permitted. Then it was gone. Ordinary darkness, ordinary temperature. He stood very still for 10 seconds. Then he walked to the door and knocked on it with one armored knuckle. The guard outside opened it with the expression of a man who had not expected to be knocked on. "I need to speak with the Inquisitor," Chief said. "Now." Thane listened without interrupting, which Chief had already assessed as one of his more useful qualities. He sat behind his map table with his hands folded, and he listened to Chief's account of Cortana's intelligence summary, and the voice in the darkness with the focused attention of a man updating a threat assessment in real time. When Chief finished, Thane was quiet for 11 seconds. Chief counted. "The breach was not an accident," Thane repeated. "It said that specifically." "Yes." "And you believe it?" "I believe it wanted me to believe it." "That's not the same thing, but the underlying claim that my arrival was anticipated or engineered, that I'm taking seriously." Thane stood and moved to a secondary map table, pulling aside a cloth that covered a series of documents Chief hadn't been shown previously. Parchment, actual parchment, dense with handwritten notation in a script Chief couldn't read, covered in red markings that formed a pattern over a schematic of the hive's levels. "We found these in a cult safe house 6 days ago. My analysts have been working on the cipher. What they've decoded so far suggests the ritual the cult performed wasn't designed to summon the word-bearers at all. The Chaos Marines came through opportunistically. They sensed an open breach and moved. The ritual was designed to open a door to something specific. Something the cult called..." He pointed to a phrase in the decoded text. Chief looked at it. Cortana was offline. He couldn't read the script. What does it say?" Thane's expression was carefully neutral. "The flood that thinks." The temperature in the room did not drop. Chief's threat assessment recalibrated anyway. "Tell me," Chief said slowly, "about your underhive containment failures." Thane looked at him sharply. How did you know about..." "Because I've fought something that matches every symptom you're about to describe." Chief set his rifle on the table, a deliberate gesture of collaborative intent, and met the Inquisitor's eyes through the visor. "And if it's what I think it is, Inquisitor, you and I have a much bigger problem than the word-bearers." Outside, somewhere in the lightless depths beneath Varanthos Prime's foundations, something vast and patient and very old adjusted its calculations and waited. Thane pulled the containment reports himself, bypassing his aides with the particular urgency of a man who had just realized he'd been asking the wrong questions for 6 days. The files were bad. Not bad in the way that chaos incursions were bad. Comprehensible, categorical, something the Imperium had 10,000 years of doctrine for confronting. Bad in the way that things were bad when they didn't fit existing doctrine at all. a 43 confirmed missing in the Underhive's deepest residential strata over the past 18 days, preceding the warp breach. Initial assessment: cult activity, sacrificial victims. Revised assessment: 4 days ago, something else, based on the condition of the 3 bodies that had been recovered. The medici reports described the remains in clinical language that didn't quite conceal the horror underneath it. Tissue integration, foreign biological material in hosts rendered unrecognizable. Chief read the translated summaries Cortana had managed to compile before her signal dropped, and felt the specific cold settling in his chest that he associated with flood encounters. Not fear, recognition. The productive kind, the kind that bypassed emotional processing and went straight to tactical calculation. "Walk me through what you know," Thane said. "The organism I've encountered operates through biological assimilation. It converts living hosts into vectors. The host's body is restructured, repurposed, used as both weapon and reproductive mechanism. It's intelligent in aggregate. Individual units vary in capability, but the collective has strategic awareness. It learns, adapts, and it prioritizes the consumption of complex neural tissue. The smarter the host, the more valuable it is to the organism." Thane's expression had gone very still. "You fought this before." "Multiple times. Across multiple installations." Chief paused. "We thought we'd contained it. Apparently, containment is a more complicated concept across dimensional boundaries than I'd accounted for. You're telling me this organism followed you here. I'm telling me that's one possibility. The other possibility is that it already existed in this universe independently, and the cult found it. Or it found the cult, and used the ritual as an opportunity." He looked at the schematic of the hive levels. "It's either way. It's in your deep infrastructure. It's been growing for at least 18 days, and the word bearers overhead are currently serving as a very effective distraction from the real threat below." Thane absorbed this with the focused calm of a man recalibrating a 37-year career's worth of threat taxonomy. If this organism assimilates hosts and builds toward collective intelligence, the population of an underhive, he stopped. Hundreds of thousands of potential hosts, Chief confirmed. Yes. The silence between them had the particular weight of shared understanding between 2 people who have both, in their separate histories, stared at extinction-level scenarios and chosen to keep working rather than stop and feel the scale of them. "I need to get into the underhive," Chief said. "That's not a request." "No, but I'm making it as one because I need your resources and you need my knowledge. And that exchange works better as a collaboration than as a command structure." He let that sit for a moment. "I'm not one of your soldiers, Inquisitor. I don't function well inside a hierarchy I didn't sign up for, but I function very well as an ally." Thane studied him with those careful gray eyes. "And if I refuse?" "Then I go anyway, and we lose the coordination benefit." Chief's tone was entirely matter-of-fact. "I'm not threatening you. I'm giving you an accurate projection." Another 11-second silence. Chief was beginning to think that was simply how Thane processed major decisions. "You'll take Voss and 10 of his soldiers," Thane said finally. You'll maintain Vox contact with my command post. You'll share everything you find in real time. And, he held up one finger, you'll submit to a full Mechanicus examination of your armor and weapons when this is over. Chief considered the last condition. Depends on what examination means. Non-destructive analysis. My tech priest is curious, not acquisitive. Then we have a deal. Voss took the news about the underhive with the resignation of a man who had stopped being surprised by the universe's capacity for additional problems. He selected his 10 soldiers with the quiet efficiency of someone choosing which burdens to share. Picking not the strongest, Chief noted, but the most adaptable. The ones who'd shown over 19 days of continuous hell, the ability to process new information without freezing. Good instincts. They descended through maintenance shafts that smelled of centuries of industrial runoff, moving through levels that the hive's official schematics listed as decommissioned. The deeper they went, the more the architecture lost its institutional character and became something older, pre-imperial stonework, Chief assessed, though Cortana wasn't available to confirm. The walls here had been built by people who'd had different priorities than the empire above them. They were carved with images that had been systematically defaced at some point in the intervening centuries. Figures and symbols gouged out by something sharp and motivated. At level 47, they found the first converted. It had been a worker. The remnants of maintenance coveralls were still partially visible beneath the biological additions that had restructured its body. It was moving away from them, deeper into the dark, and it hadn't detected them yet. Chief held up a closed fist, and the squad stopped instantly, Voss relaying the signal with hands that were steady despite the sharp intake of breath he couldn't quite suppress. Chief watched the converted figure move, noted the gait, the particular lurching efficiency of flood combat forms, repurposed musculature driving a body it hadn't evolved to operate. Noted the secondary growths along the left arm, not weapons yet, still forming. Early stage conversion. Early stage meant the collective hadn't reached critical mass yet. There was still time. How much time was the variable he couldn't calculate without Cortana, and her absence pressed against his tactical awareness like a missing instrument in a cockpit. Not crippling, not yet, but a constant reminder of operating below optimal capacity. That was a person, Voss said very quietly, Inde at his shoulder. Yes. Can it be? Voss stopped, reformulated. Is there anything left of it? Chief had asked that question once, in a different universe, in a different dark. The answer hadn't changed with the crossing of dimensional boundaries. No, he said. There isn't. Voss nodded once, with the particular economy of grief that soldiers develop when grief is a luxury the moment won't permit. He didn't ask again. They moved deeper, and the dark moved with them. And somewhere ahead, in the lightless geology of Varanthos Prime's foundations, the flood that thinks adjusted to the presence of something it recognized, a very old enemy wearing a new universe like an unfamiliar coat, and began revising its plans accordingly. The collective announced itself the way it always did, not with sound, but with smell. Chief had learned this in the library on Installation 04, in the desperate grinding hours before the index, before everything went wrong the first time. The flood had a smell that no amount of combat experience fully prepared you for. Organic and sweet and deeply wrong. The scent of biology operating outside its intended parameters. Here, in the lightless sublevels of Varanthos Prime, it mixed with the existing industrial decay of the underhive into something that hit the back of the throat like a warning. His helmet's filters engaged automatically. The soldiers behind him had no such luxury. Breathe through your mouths, he said quietly. Don't touch anything that looks like it's grown rather than built. Voss passed the instruction back without question. The squad's formation tightened instinctively. The mammalian response to wrongness, bodies seeking proximity to other bodies. Chief let it happen. Tight formation was tactically suboptimal in an ambush environment, but the psychological benefit to unit cohesion outweighed the risk at current threat density. In current threat density changed 40 seconds later. The maintenance corridor opened into what the schematic listed as a decommissioned water reclamation chamber. A vast, cathedral-ceilinged space that in its operational years had processed the liquid waste of 2 million hive inhabitants. Now it processed something else. The chamber's walls were covered floor to ceiling in biomass, the flood's characteristic gray-brown organic material, thick as insulation, pulsing with slow biological rhythm. Octendrils connected pillar to pillar across the open space. And within the biomass, partially absorbed but still recognizable, were people. Dozens of them, hundreds. The missing residents of the underhive's lower strata, integrated into the collective's infrastructure, their nervous systems repurposed as processing nodes in a biological network that was, Chief now understood, significantly more developed than the early-stage conversion upstairs had suggested. This wasn't a nascent infection. This was an established installation. Behind him, one of the soldiers made a sound. Voss silenced it with a hand on the shoulder and said nothing, but his face in the peripheral pickup of Chief's motion tracker had gone the specific gray of a man confronting something his categories don't contain. John. Cortana. Signal stronger than it had been in hours. And then Chief understood why, with a cold clarity that reorganized his threat assessment completely. The flood biomass was suppressing the warp interference. The collective's biological electromagnetic signature was creating a pocket of relative psychic quiet that her signal could penetrate. The flood had, whether deliberately or incidentally, created the conditions for her to speak to him. He filed the ambiguity of that and kept moving. "I can see the chamber through your helmet feed," she said. "John, this is bad. The integration level suggests the collective has been operating here for longer than 18 days. Much longer. The cult didn't find this. They found an edge of it. This predates the warp breach by months, possibly years." "It was already here," he said, sub-vocalized. "Already here, growing slowly, carefully, staying below detection thresholds. The breach wasn't to bring the flood in. The breach was, John, I think the flood manipulated the cult into opening the breach deliberately. Not to expand outward, to bring something inward. Me, you, or something like you. Something that has fought them before and carries that information in experiential memory. A mind that understands them. A pause. They want to assimilate you, John. Not convert you. Assimilate you. Your tactical knowledge, your experience across every flood engagement you've ever survived, absorbed into the collective intelligence. Chief stood in the doorway of the chamber and looked at the biomass and the people within it, and thought about what it meant that the most dangerous organism he'd ever encountered had engineered an interdimensional breach specifically to acquire him. He supposed he should have felt flattered. Voss, he kept his voice level. We need to pull back to the previous junction. I need 2 minutes to reassess. Voss asked no questions. The squad withdrew. At the junction, Chief laid out the situation in the compressed, unadorned language he used when there was no time for anything else, and the people listening needed accurate information more than they needed comfort. He watched Voss's face process it. The revelation that the flood predated the cult, that the warp breach was manufactured, that the organism below had strategic patience measured in months or years. It used the chaos incursion as cover, Voss said slowly. The word-bearers overhead are drawing every significant Imperial asset to the upper hive. Inquisitor Thane's attention, your regiment's combat power, whatever naval support is in orbit. While everyone fights the chaos incursion, the flood completes whatever it's building down here. Chief looked at the schematic on his forearm display. We need to destroy the central biomass, cut the collective's coordination, and buy time for a broader response. With 11 soldiers and whatever you're carrying. Voss said it flatly, not as objection, but as arithmetic. With 11 soldiers and whatever I'm carrying, Chief confirmed. Voss looked at his 10 people. They looked back at him with the expressions of soldiers who had been in impossible situations for 19 days and had developed a working relationship with impossibility. He turned back to Chief. What do we need? John, Cortana said, and her voice carried something careful in it. Before you go back in there, the voice you heard in your antechamber, the one that said the breach wasn't an accident. Yes. That wasn't the flood. The flood doesn't communicate that way. It doesn't taunt. It doesn't warn. It doesn't speak to individuals. That was something else. Something that also knew you were coming. She paused. There are more players in this than we've accounted for. Chief absorbed this, looked at the corridor leading back to the chamber, looked at Voss and his 10 soldiers. One problem at a time, he said, and moved forward. The plan was not elegant. Elegant plans required resources Chief didn't have. What he had was 11 soldiers, 4 fragmentation grenades, his MA-40 with 60 rounds remaining, a M6D pistol with 2 full magazines, the Mjolnir's kinetic capability, and Cortana running at intermittent capacity in the electromagnetic shadow of a flood installation. What he built from these materials was not elegant. It was functional, which in Chief's experience was a more reliable quality anyway. The approach was straightforward. Voss and 8 soldiers would establish a firing line at the chamber entrance, concentrating last fire on the biomass nodes along the left wall, the densest concentration, where the integrated hosts were most numerous and the coordination tissue most developed. The goal wasn't destruction, It was disruption, creating enough neural noise in the collective to mask Chief's movement through the right side of the chamber, where the schematic showed a secondary access point leading deeper toward the chamber's mechanical core. The old water reclamation machinery, which the flood had almost certainly repurposed as structural support for the central coordination mass. 2 soldiers would go with him. He picked them himself. A young woman named Sarah, who had demonstrated in the Boulevard engagement the particular quality of moving quietly under pressure, and an older man called Davon, who carried a combat shotgun that would be useful at the ranges they'd encounter inside the biomass. "If I'm not back in 20 minutes, Chief told Voss, pull everyone out and tell Thane what we found. All of it. Don't let him minimize it." "And the flood? If it starts moving toward the surface?" "Then Thane burns the underhive and accepts the infrastructure loss." Chief paused. "Make sure he understands that's not a recommendation. It's a requirement." Voss held his gaze for a moment. "You come back in 20 minutes and tell him yourself." The firing line opened up on schedule, last beams scoring red lines across the gray biomass, and the collective's response was immediate. A rippling contraction across the entire chamber wall, the integrated hosts convulsing in coordinated distress, tendrils retracting and repositioning toward the new threat. Chief moved into the disruption the way he'd learned to move through flood installations. Not fast, not slow, exactly fast enough to stay ahead of the collective's threat recalculation. Sarah moved well. Devon moved adequately. Neither panicked, which was the baseline requirement. The right side of the chamber was worse than the schematic suggested. The flood had restructured the mechanical infrastructure extensively, growing around and through the old reclamation equipment in ways that turned the familiar geometry of pipes and catwalks into something organic and unpredictable. Chief navigated by feel and combat instinct, stepping over tendrils that pulsed with sluggish biological rhythm, ducking beneath growths that had absorbed ceiling fixtures into their structure. Halfway across, a combat form dropped from the ceiling. It had been a large man once. The skeletal structure beneath the flood additions suggested significant physical mass in its prior life. Now it was a delivery mechanism for the collective's violence, and it moved with the particular speed of something that had abandoned self-preservation as a parameter. Chief caught its primary strike on the Mjolnir's forearm, absorbed the impact, and redirected the momentum into the wall in the same motion. 3 rounds from the MA-40 at contact range. It stopped moving, shields at 71%. 30 meters to the core, Cortana said. "John, I'm reading something strange in the coordination mass. There's a signal inside it that doesn't match flood biological patterns. Something embedded in the core. Something technological." "What kind of technology?" It's not UNSC. It's not anything I have reference for. It's old, John. Very old. And it's been transmitting." They reached the mechanical core through a service hatch that the flood had partially absorbed, but not fully sealed. An oversight that Chief filed as either genuine error or deliberate invitation, with the ambiguity held carefully in mind. The core space was smaller than the main chamber, dominated by the original reclamation machinery, now encased in 3 meters of biomass on every surface. At the center, where the primary processing unit had once stood, the flood had built something. It took Chief 4 seconds to understand what he was looking at. The object at the center was not biological. It was a polyhedron approximately 2 meters across, its surfaces covered in geometric patterns that caught the dim light with the particular quality of Forerunner construction. That unmistakable intersection of mathematics and aesthetics that Chief had learned to recognize across a dozen installations. It was old, older than the flood infection, older, possibly, than the hive built above it, and it was active. Faint blue light pulsed in the geometric channels, slow and rhythmic as a heartbeat. Cortana, I see it. John, it's a Forerunner artifact. Here, in this universe. Her voice carried something she rarely permitted herself. Genuine uncertainty about what she was processing. It shouldn't be possible. The dimensional breach shouldn't have. Unless it wasn't just you that came through. Unless something came through before you. Long before you. The voice from his antechamber returned. Not auditory. That same not quite sound. That suggestion of communication existing at the edge of perception. You found it? Good. We were concerned the parasite would complete its integration before you arrived. It has been patient. So have we. Chief stood in front of the Forerunner artifact and kept his weapon raised and thought very carefully about who we might be. Who are you? He said, aloud, to the empty air. The main chamber, the sound of sustained the main chamber, the sound of sustained last fire, told him Voss was still holding. Monitors, the voice said. We have many designations. You would know us as Guilty Spark's kindred. We preceded the breach by 11,000 years. We have been waiting for a reclaimer to arrive. Sarah and Davon were looking at Chief with the expressions of soldiers who had followed someone into a situation that had just exceeded their categorical framework entirely. Davon's shotgun was raised. Sarah's hand was on her lasgun trigger. Neither knew what to aim at. Chief lowered his MA 40 by 5 degrees, not holstering it, not surrendering it. A gesture occupying the precise middle ground between aggression and dialogue. You've been inside the flood installation, he said. Bah, for 11,000 years, studying it, containing it, preventing it from reaching the surface until a reclaimer arrived to make the necessary determination. What determination? The artifact's light intensified. The biomass shuddered. Whether this parasite is the same one you know or something new. And if new, whether the solution you carried in your universe applies here, or whether a different answer is required. A pause that felt almost human in its weight. The grave mind of this universe is not the one you defeated, Reclaimer. It is younger, hungrier, and it has had 11,000 years to study the ruins of the ones who came before it. Chief looked at the artifact, looked at the biomass, looked at Cortana's status indicator. Intermittent, fluctuating, but present. Behind him, Devon said, very quietly, "Sir, what do we do?" Chief had carried the weight of extinction-level decisions before. "I complete the mission," he said. "And then complete the mission," he said. "And then we have a very long conversation with the Inquisitor." Getting out of the core chamber required solving 3 problems simultaneously. The first was the flood. The collective had registered the artifact's activation as a threat-level event and was redirecting combat forms from the main chamber toward the core access point. Chief could hear the change in acoustic signature, the particular wet percussion of flood movement shifting from random dispersal to directed convergence. The firing line Voss was maintaining wouldn't hold against a coordinated push. The second was the artifact itself. The monitor, or whatever intelligence was speaking through it, had offered information but not assistance, and Chief had learned across too many Forerunner installations to treat monitor cooperation as unconditional. They had their own parameters, their own imperatives. And 11,000 years of solitary containment duty did interesting things to any intelligence's judgment. The third problem was Devon, who had been clipped by a flood tendril during the withdrawal and was showing the particular stillness of a man trying to determine if the cut on his forearm meant what he was afraid it meant. "Show me," Chief said. Devon extended his arm. The laceration was superficial. The tendril had caught the edge of his forearm rather than achieving penetration, and the flood's conversion mechanism required meaningful biological integration, not surface contact. Chief assessed this in 2 seconds and communicated it in 4 words. "You're not infected. Move." Davin moved. They came back through the biomass field faster than they'd gone in, Chief running interference on 2 combat forms that intercepted them at the midpoint. Sarah providing covering fire with a precision that suggested she'd spent her 19 days of continuous combat learning things the Imperial Guard's training manuals hadn't specifically taught her. Settled. "We need to pull back to the settled. We need to pull back to the level 45 junction and hold it, right now." Voss didn't ask why. He started moving people. In the junction, with combat forms probing the corridor in 1s and 2s rather than the full coordinated assault Chief had expected, he laid out what he'd found in compressed sequence. The Forerunner artifact, the monitor intelligence, the revelation that the flood in Varanthus Prime's underhive was a distinct strain, younger, different, shaped by 11,000 years of development in a universe with its own specific psychic physics. Thane's voice on the Vox was carefully controlled. "You're telling me there is a Forerunner installation beneath this hive? A single artifact, but yes. And an intelligence within it that has been actively containing a Xenos biological threat for 11 millennia without Imperial knowledge or sanction." A pause. "I'm going to need you to understand how many regulations that violates." "Inquisitor," Chief kept his voice level. "The regulations aren't the current priority. In the Imperium of Man, the regulations are always a priority." But Thane's tone carried something pragmatic underneath the doctrinal assertion. "What do you need?" "Promethium, as much as you can get to level 45 in the next 30 minutes. And I need to know if your tech priest has any experience with non-Imperial technology." A longer pause. "Magos Drev has experience with certain Xenos artifacts recovered under Inquisitorial seal. Why? Because the Monitor wants to negotiate, and I need someone who can interface with the artifact directly while I handle the flood. I can't do both simultaneously without Cortana at full capacity." "John," Cortana said, her signal clear in the artifact's electromagnetic shadow that still reached, faintly, to the junction level. "I want to flag something. The Monitor's offer of cooperation comes with an implicit request. It wants recognition. Formal acknowledgement from a reclaimer that its 11,000-year containment duty was valid and completed. It needs that before it'll cooperate fully." "That's what it told you?" "That's what I inferred from 11,000 years of isolation and the psychological profiles of Monitor-class intelligences I have on record. They need purpose validation the way humans need food. Without it, their judgment degrades." A pause. "Guilty Spark tried to kill you 3 times, John. I'd like to avoid a repetition." Chief filed this and relayed a condensed version to Thane. The Inquisitor's silence on the other end of the Vox had the particular quality of a man adding items to a list that had already exceeded reasonable parameters. "I'll send Drev," Thane said finally, "and the Promethium." Magos Drev arrived 40 minutes later, the delay caused by navigating from the upper hive through 3 contested transit routes, and was everything Chief had been told to expect from a Mechanicus tech priest, and nothing he'd been emotionally prepared for. She was approximately 60% machine by visual assessment. Her biological components encased in red robes that couldn't fully conceal the mechadendrites coiling at her back and the optical arrays that had replaced her eyes. Lenses that cycled through magnification levels with soft mechanical clicks as she regarded Chief's armor with an attention that was technically professional and temperamentally rapacious. "Magnificent," she said, in a voice processed through a vocal synthesizer that rendered her tone precise and effectless. "The metallurgical composition alone, I have 17 questions about the polymer bonding in the shoulder pauldron." "Later," Chief said. "The Inquisitor said you'd say that." She didn't sound discouraged. "He also said something about a non-imperial technological artifact of significant age that requires interfacing. I have brought appropriate equipment." She indicated a case carried by a servo skull that hovered at her shoulder. "I should note that appropriate is relative. I am working from first principles." "Can you interface with something you've never seen before?" Drev's optical arrays clicked through 3 magnification cycles. "I have interfaced with a Cetan shard fragment, 2 active Eldar Wraithbone constructs, and on 1 memorable occasion, a Tau drone that was shooting at me at the time." She paused. "Yes." Chief looked at her for a moment. In a different context, he thought Cortana would have liked her. While Drev prepared her equipment, Chief turned to Voss and the remaining soldiers. The Promethium had arrived, 8 canisters, enough to saturate the reclamation chamber and the surrounding corridors. The plan was straightforward in concept and deeply unpleasant in execution. Dreve would attempt to interface with the Monitor artifact and formally close its containment mandate, freeing it to provide the Flood's structural weaknesses directly to Chief. Chief would use that intelligence to place the Promethium at maximum effect points in the biomass. Voss and the squad would maintain the perimeter and ensure nothing came up from below while the burn was prepared. "You're saying once the burn starts, 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 The burn starts. 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 The burn. You're saying once the burn starts, the collective will attempt a full surface push. Everything it has, all at once, trying to escape the fire. Yes. And your plan for containing that push is me at the choke point, while you get your people up 2 levels to the sealed blast doors and lock them. Voss was quiet for 4 seconds. That's not a plan. That's a sacrifice play. It's a calculated risk. Chief picked up 2 of the Promethium canisters. There's a difference. Is there? Voss said it without the inflection of a question. Chief looked at him through the visor. Get your people out, Sergeant. That's an order. Voss held his ground for 1 more second. The specific stubborn second of a soldier who has run out of arguments but hasn't run out of objections. And then nodded once with the compressed dignity of a man accepting something he can't change. He turned to his squad and began issuing quiet, precise instructions. And Drev had opened her case and was studying the schematic Chief had drawn of the artifact's geometric patterns with the focused attention of someone who has just been handed the most interesting problem of their career. Ready when you are, she said, without looking up. Chief picked up the remaining canisters and started back down toward the dark. The monitor spoke before Chief reached the core chamber entrance. Not through the artifact this time, through the Mjolnir's external speakers directly, a transmission that shouldn't have been possible through the armor's hardened communications architecture, and which Cortana flagged immediately with an alert tone that carried, even through the warp interference, the precise frequency of genuine alarm. Reclaimer. The Magos that builds is interfacing with the installation. We are pleased. It has been some time since we have spoken with another intelligence of sufficient complexity. A pause measured in milliseconds, but weighted like centuries. We must tell you something before you proceed. The grave mind of this universe knows your intention. It has known since you entered the core chamber. It permitted you to leave. Chief stopped walking. Why? Because it wanted you here, at the choke point, alone. It has studied the tactical memory of every host it has assimilated in 11,000 years, and it recognizes the sacrifice play as a pattern you have executed before. It is prepared for it. The choke point is where it wants you, Reclaimer. Isolated, surrounded, and available for assimilation at maximum concentration of its combat forms. Chief processed this in the 4 seconds it took him to set down the Promethium canisters, unsling his MA-40, and reassess every assumption underlying the current plan. The Flood hadn't been reacting to him. It had been conducting him. Every push, every withdrawal, every seemingly opportunistic combat form, intercept, choreography. The collective had 11,000 years of tactical memory, and the particular advantage of an opponent whose methods, however extraordinary, were ultimately patterns. Patterns could be learned. Patterns could be anticipated. He'd been outmaneuvered by a fungal superorganism, and the specific quality of that realization was something he set aside for later processing. "New plan," he said to Cortana. "I was hoping you'd say that," she replied, "because I've been running the chamber structural analysis against everything the monitor transmitted, and there's an alternative to the choke point. It's worse for you personally, but better strategically." "Tell me." "The central biomass has 3 primary coordination nodes. The monitor identified them during its containment observations. Destroying all 3 simultaneously collapses the collective's higher strategic function. It won't kill the Flood, but it reduces it from a unified intelligence to fragmented instinct. Individual combat forms can still be dangerous, but they can't conduct operations, can't plan, can't anticipate. The nodes are spread across the chamber. Yes, which means you can't hold a choke point and destroy all 3. You have to move through the chamber, exposed." Chief looked at the corridor ahead, at the soft pulsing bioluminescence that the Flood growth cast across the walls. The collective's version of ambient lighting, and somehow more unsettling for its almost comfortable quality. "Shields at 68%, he said. "How long does simultaneous node destruction take?" "If you place the Promethium canisters at each node location and detonate them in sequence with less than a 3-second interval, the coordination collapse should be immediate. But John, the Flood will know what you're doing the moment you deviate from the choke point approach. You'll have every combat form in the chamber on you from the first canister placement. Then I move fast. You move very fast." He contacted Voss on the Vox. "Change of plan. Keep your squad at the level 45 junction. Don't proceed to the blast doors yet. Voss's response was immediate. What do you need? A distraction, maximum noise, maximum last fire at the chamber entrance. 30 seconds, starting on my mark. Don't come in, just make it loud. A pause. Understood. Say the word. Chief picked up the canisters, adjusted his grip, ran the geometry of the chamber in his memory. The 3 node locations the monitor had identified, their relative positions, the optimal movement path connecting them. 40 meters of traversal through an active flood installation with the collective's full attention. He'd run worse math than this before. The answer had always been the same. Move faster than the problem. Mark. Voss opened up with everything his squad had, and the sound of it crashed through the chamber like weather. 11 lasguns firing sustained bursts. The sharp ozone crack of superheated air. Voss's own voice cutting through it all with the particular authority of a sergeant who had learned that volume was its own form of leadership. The flood responded exactly as Chief had calculated. The nearest combat forms surging toward the entrance in a coordinated wave. The collective's attention vectoring toward the loudest threat. Chief came through the right side access point at full sprint. The first node was 20 meters in, embedded in the biomass at the base of a load-bearing pillar. He placed the canister, armed it, and was already moving before the collective registered the new contact. Second node, 30 meters across the chamber floor, through a gap between tendril clusters that required a 4-meter jump over a biomass ridge that hadn't been there on his previous visit. The flood was restructuring in real time, adapting. He jumped, landed, kept moving. Combat forms were turning from the entrance now, the collective updating its threat assessment, redistributing attention. 2 of them intercepted his path to the second node, and he went through them rather than around, the Mjolnir's kinetic force doing the work his ammunition couldn't spare. Shields at 53%, 49, second canister placed, armed, moving. The third node was the problem. The monitor had identified it at the chamber's far end beneath the primary coordination mass, the densest concentration of biomass in the installation, where the oldest and most integrated hosts were woven deepest into the collective's neural architecture. Getting there meant crossing 60 meters of open floor with every remaining combat form in the chamber now fully oriented toward him. John, Cortana's voice was tight. The grave mine knows what you're doing. It's pulling forms from the upper levels, the ones it's been holding in reserve. How many? All of them. The far end of the chamber filled with movement. Chief ran anyway. What followed was not a battle in any conventional sense. It was physics applied to desperation. The Mjolnir pushing augmented human physiology to its operational ceiling, shields flaring and dropping, and partially recovering in the half-second intervals between impacts, the MA-40 firing in precise controlled bursts that prioritized path clearing over elimination. He wasn't trying to win the firefight. He was trying to cross 60 meters, 40 meters, combat form impact on the left shoulder, shields at 31%, 25 meters, tendril across the path. He went through it at speed, felt the resistance, kept moving. Shields at 22%, 10 meters, 3 combat forms between him and the node, and the MA-40 clicked empty. He dropped the rifle without breaking stride, drew the M6D, fired twice at the lead form's locomotion center, not to kill, to slow, and hit the remaining 2 with the Mjolnir's full kinetic mass at a dead sprint. The impact was mutual and significant. He came up from the collision with cracked environmental seals along the left pauldron, shields at 9%, and the third node directly in front of him. He placed the canister with hands that did not shake, armed it. "John, get out!" He was already running. The 3 detonations happened in 2.7 seconds. Fire blooming through the chamber in sequence, promethium burning at temperatures that biological tissue wasn't designed to survive. The coordination mass above the third node came down in a cascade of burning biomass, and the sound that the collective made in the moment of its cognitive collapse was something Chief had no existing reference for. Not a scream, not silence. Something between. The acoustic signature of distributed intelligence losing coherence. Thousands of connected nodes suddenly receiving only static where strategy had been. He made it to the access point with 4 seconds to spare before the ceiling followed the coordination mass down. In the junction, Voss caught him before he hit the wall. The sergeant's hands on his shoulder, steadying without comment, the particular practicality of a soldier who understood that the time for questions was after the structure stopped falling. "Drev?" Chief asked. Voss's vox crackled. Drev's synthesized voice came through flat and precise and carrying. Underneath the effectless processing, something that might have been awe. "The monitor has formally closed its containment mandate. It transmitted 11,000 years of flood behavioral data directly to my cogitator arrays." A pause. "I believe it also told me a joke. I am still processing whether that is what happened." Chief leaned against the wall and let himself breathe for 4 seconds. "And the monitor itself?" "It said..." Drev paused again. "It said to tell the reclaimer, containment complete. The work continues elsewhere." Then the artifact went dark. Chief closed his eyes behind the visor. Somewhere above them, Varanthos Prime was still burning. The word bearers were still overhead. Thane was still running an inquisition with 17 new problems he hadn't had this morning. And the flood below, fragmented, instinct-driven, burning, was not destroyed. Contained. Again. Reduced. Bought time against. It was never destroyed. "Bing, get everyone moving. We have a chaos. Get everyone moving. We have a chaos war band to finish dealing with." Voss looked at him, at the cracked pauldron, the shields reading 9%, the empty rifle sling. "You're going back up there." "We're going back up there," Chief said. "Unless you'd rather wait down here." Voss looked at the burning corridor behind them. "Up it is," he said. The word-bearers had taken the sanctum of eternal vigilance 3 days before Chief arrived on Varanthos Prime. It was the hive's primary ecclesiastical structure, a cathedral that occupied 6 city blocks and rose 400 meters above the surrounding manufactorum districts, its spires topped with the imperial eagle rendered in corroded bronze, its walls thick enough to qualify as fortifications and old enough to have survived 3 previous planetary sieges. The word-bearers had chosen it with the particular symbolic intelligence of warriors who understood that desecrating a holy site was itself a weapon, that breaking the sanctum broke something in the population's will that last bolts and casualties couldn't reach. Thane had 300 soldiers surrounding it. He'd been unwilling to assault without knowing what was inside. Chief came up from the underhive through a maintenance shaft that opened 2 blocks from the Inquisitor's command chimera, and the expression on Thane's face when he saw the cracked pauldron and the empty rifle sling was one of the more restrained reactions Chief had received to his general condition after a hard operation. "The underhive?" Thane asked. "Contained, temporarily." Chief accepted a replacement weapon from Thane's requisitioned stores, a bolter, the closest thing in the Inquisitor's inventory to the stopping power his MA-40 had provided, and heavier than he preferred, but functional. I'll give you the full briefing after. Right now, I need what you know about the sanctum's interior." Thane spread a schematic across the Chimera's hood without preamble. 17 confirmed word-bearers inside based on thermal auger readings. The warband's apostle, their equivalent of a commanding officer and religious leader, has been conducting a ritual in the main nave for approximately 6 hours. Our psychers report significant warp activity within the structure. Whatever he's doing, it's close to completion. "What does completion look like?" Thane's expression was carefully neutral. "Our best assessment is a sustained demonic incursion, not a breach like the cult opened, something more stable, a permanent fixture." He paused. "The hive would need to be destroyed." Chief looked at the sanctum spires against the smoke-choked sky. "How many civilians still in the surrounding blocks?" "Approximately 40,000 who couldn't be evacuated before the cordon was established." The number sat between them with its full weight. "John," Cortana said. Her signal was strong now, above ground, away from the warp interference of the underhive. She was running closer to full capacity than she'd managed since their arrival. "I've been analyzing the bolter ammunition and the word-bearer's armor profiles from the Boulevard engagement data. The joint vulnerabilities are consistent across the warband. And the apostle, ritual conductors of this type, require sustained concentration. Disruption of the ritual before completion forces a restart or collapse. How much disruption? Killing him would be sufficient." Chief looked at Thane. I need a way in that doesn't announce my approach to 17 power-armored opponents simultaneously." Thane almost smiled. "I thought you'd ask that." He pointed to the schematic. "There's a confessor's passage, a private entrance used by the cathedral's senior clergy before the word-bearers took the building. It enters through the vestry on the sanctum's east side. The thermal augers show no contacts in that quadrant. They left it unguarded. They've held this building for 3 days against 300 soldiers. They may have stopped expecting surprises." Thane paused. "Or it's a trap." "Everything is a trap until you spring it and find out," Chief said, and picked up the bolter. The confessor's passage smelled of incense and old stone, and the particular quality of silence that accumulated in religious spaces over centuries. A silence that had been violated recently and profoundly. The air carrying beneath the familiar ecclesiastical scent something acrid and wrong, the chaos corruption bleeding into the physical environment the way the flood's biology had saturated the underhive. Chief moved through it alone. He'd left Voss with explicit instructions: maintain the perimeter, ensure Thane's forces were staged for immediate entry on his signal, keep Drev away from anything that looked technologically interesting until the shooting stopped. Cortana ran his threat assessment continuously, her processing clean and sharp in the electromagnetic quiet above ground. 2 contacts in the nave antechamber, stationary, probably ceremonial guard positions. The main ritual is definitely in the primary nave. I'm reading warp energy buildup through the structural resonance. John, the ritual is further along than Thane estimated. We have maybe 15 minutes. He took the antechamber guards with the bolter at close range before they completed their turn toward him, the explosive rounds doing what they were designed to do with efficient brutality. Through the antechamber's inner doors, the nave opened before him in its full corrupted magnificence. The sanctum had been a place of imperial faith for 3,000 years. The word-bearers had worked on it for 3 days, and the transformation was thorough. The imperial iconography defaced or inverted. The altar rebuilt into something that served a different theological purpose. The air thick with incense that burned in colors fire shouldn't produce. At the nave's center, 15 word-bearers stood in a ritual formation around a circle of script carved into the stone floor. And at the circle's apex, arms raised, voice carrying in a language that pressed against Chief's helmet's audio processing, like something trying to get through from the other side, stood the apostle. He was enormous even by word-bearer standards. Ancient power armor encrusted with devotional scripture, and the accumulated trophies of a century of holy war. His helmetless face, a topography of ritual scarring and absolute conviction. He was, Chief assessed in the half-second before the nearest word-bearer registered his presence, genuinely dangerous. Chief had operated around genuinely dangerous before. What followed was the brutal arithmetic of a close-quarters engagement in a confined space against numerically superior opponents. The kind of fight Chief had run dozens of times with worse odds and less favorable terrain. He moved through the formation the way he'd moved through the flood biomass, in prioritizing disruption over elimination, the bolter working in controlled pairs, the Mjolnir's shields flaring from yellow to red and holding it red as the word-bearers responded with the coordinated fury of warriors who had spent a century learning to fight as a unit, 9 of them down in 90 seconds. The remaining 6 formed a protective ring around the apostle, who had not stopped chanting. The ritual circle was glowing now, not metaphorically. The script carved into the stone was luminous with warp energy, and through the floor, Chief could feel something that the Mjolnir's sensors registered as a seismic event, and which his own nervous system registered as something older and more fundamental than any earthquake. The feeling of a boundary under pressure. 10 minutes, Cortana said. John, I know. He did something he had never done in 30 years of combat. He stopped. Let the 6 word-bearers hold their formation. Lowered the bolter by 10 degrees, not surrendering it, not holstering it. The same gesture he'd made to the monitor's artifact. The precise middle ground. The apostle's chanting slowed, his eyes, pale, ancient, burning with the particular fire of a man who had invested everything in a belief system and watched it deliver on its promises. Fixed on Chief with an attention that was almost meditative in its focus. "You," the apostle said, in accented but comprehensible Gothic, "ye are not imperial." "No," Chief said. "Not chaos." "No." "Then what are you?" "Not hostile, genuinely theological." The question of a man who had organized his entire cosmology around the certainty that everything fit into existing categories. Chief thought about Cortana's description of the Imperium, a civilization built on faith that had physical weight. He thought about the flood below, patient and ancient and hungry. He thought about the Monitor and closing its 11,000-year mandate with something that might have been a joke. He thought about 61 soldiers holding a barricade for 19 days because they didn't know how to do anything else. "I'm what humanity looks like," he said, "when it decides to survive without becoming something it doesn't recognize." The apostle studied him for 4 seconds. "Chaos offers power," the apostle said. The ritual circle's glow had stabilized, the chanting pause buying a temporary plateau. "It offers truth. The emperor is a corpse on a throne. The gods are real and present and answering. Why would you refuse that?" "Because the price is everything you were before you accepted it." Chief raised the bolter. "And I've seen what that costs," he fired. The shot took the apostle in the right shoulder, deliberate, not fatal, enough to break the concentration that the ritual required. The circle's glow stuttered. The warp pressure against the floor dropped from critical to severe in one stuttering moment, the boundary holding, the incursion collapsing back on itself like a wave that couldn't find shore. The remaining 6 word-bearers moved. Chief was already moving faster. When Thane's forces breached the sanctum's main doors 40 seconds later, responding to the gunfire that served as Chief's signal, they found 14 word-bearers down, and one, the apostle, still breathing, his ritual broken, and his power armor systems fried by a combination of bolter rounds and whatever the Mjolnir's kinetic systems had administered during the final 30 seconds of engagement. Chief was standing in the center of the nave, in the cooling ruins of the ritual circle. Shield indicators flatlined and armor reading 17 distinct impact points, holding the apostle's collapsed form off the floor by the remains of his gorget. Thane walked to the center of the nave and looked at the broken ritual circle, and the fallen word-bearers, and the prisoner, and the cracked pauldron, and the flatlined shields, and was quiet for 11 seconds. "You'll want a medicae," he said finally. "I want a debrief," Chief said. "The medicae can wait." Voss, coming through the door behind Thane's soldiers, looked at the scene with the expression of a man updating his understanding of what one person could accomplish in 40 seconds. He said nothing. He didn't need to. Outside, Varanthos Prime was still burning, but the particular fires that had been fed by Chaos Ritual were going out, one by one, as the warband's coordination collapsed without its apostle. The cultists scattered. The remaining word-bearers, those still alive, withdrew with the grinding discipline of warriors who had lost but not broken. The hive would stand. Whether it would ever be the same was a different calculation.